So this species is unique in the sense that if you take all the other better known dolphin species that we know from the oceans and so on, this really is very different biologically, anatomically, physiologically, very, very different. Number one. Secondly, if you take other mammals also, there is almost nothing like this particular species, the Ganges, and its cousin species, the Indus river dolphin, which is found in the Indus basin in India and Pakistan. Uh, and this one is found in India, Nepal, and Bangladesh. This is one of the oldest species of dolphins that is still alive, still surviving. It evolved nearly 25, 23 million years back. The exact date, there is a little bit of uncertainty, but it's very old in terms of its evolutionary history. And many characters that you see in the animal are basically relics of the fauna of that time, the Miocene uh, period. Because of that, anything that you would expect in a typical sea dolphin, you won't get it here in this case. And that is, I think, a really fascinating, very different evolutionary sort of uh, a thing of evolutionary interest, which is really unique about this species. For one, it is completely or almost completely blind, and it it can only differentiate between the light horizon and dark horizon. And this has been an evolutionarily evolved sort of trait because in a very murky river, as I just said, visibility is not even 2 centimeters at times. You don't need eyes. So gradually there has been a regression of the lens in the eye, and it's hardly there. It's very rudimentary. So that way, the eye only functions like a pinhole camera, where it can only detect what is the surface of the river and the bottom of the river, which is really, again, no other species has such a loss of eyesight. There are, of course, many dolphins use acoustics to make up for limited vision underwater, but this one only relies on echolocation. So it constantly keeps emitting clicks and moving about in its habitat. And I think this is really something that is both fascinating and worthy of conserving because it tells us a lot about uh, that age. What was the kind of evolution that happened in that time when the Tethys Sea was getting enclosed and the Himalayas were growing, emerging. I think the, that's really fascinating about this species. Of course, there are many other unique characteristics which I won't get into now. And in terms of conservation, I think the species has already suffered a fair bit, mainly because of human withdrawal of water by dams, barrages, canals, and so on, mainly for irrigated agriculture, also for power production to a minor extent, and urban water supply. And I think a lot of rivers have therefore been, they have less water available in the dry season in particular, in summer, which has led to a shrinking of the available habitat for this species. Alongside that, fishing has been another important threat. And whether to call fishing a threat is, of course, subjective because fishermen have also lived with the dolphin for thousands of years. But there is no denying the fact that they have used dolphins by killing them for their oil. The oil is a fairly valuable commodity. It is used for catching a particular species of catfish. It's used to cure rheumatic pain and such things. So fishermen have been harvesting dolphins from a long time. Now, of course, it is reducing because more people are aware of the fact that this is an endangered species and it's illegal to harvest it or kill it. But that doesn't mean that there is no threat from fishing because often what happens is the dolphins get entangled in fishing nets accidentally, which leads to they can't come up to breathe, then they drown, and this is called bycatch because nobody intended to catch the dolphin, but it just came and got stuck in the net. And these gill nets account for a lot of mortality even today. So I think that would be one of the primary existing threats for river dolphins. Apart from that, I think pollution is a major threat in some regions, especially in the upper Gangetic Plains. Pollution is a severe threat to many areas which were part of the distribution range of the dolphin. Now, increasingly, we are seeing other forms of more invisible but more dangerous threats, plastic pollution being one of them. I think the amount of plastic that is generated by the Indus, Ganga, Brahmaputra basins together, I think second or third highest in terms of the load of plastic wastes that we emit to the oceans. I think this is gradually going to be a very serious threat for all aquatic wildlife. Not only that, there are plans to link different rivers in India. So that you must have heard of the river interlinking program, very grand sort of scheme too, which imagines that water from so-called water surplus basins will be transferred to so-called water deficit regions. But the ecological costs of doing this are going to be enormous. And of course, it's still not happened fully, so it's too early to say perhaps, but one can predict with a fairly good prior information that this is going to be really a major ecological impact on the species. There is another potential threat, which is from the development of commercial waterways on our rivers. So, under this, this is also a flagship project of the government, where a lot of inland water transport has been envisioned in the near future. And of course, some development of water transport is important because that can help in passenger movement or cargo ferrying. But I think the extent at which this has been planned can be potentially quite serious in terms of the risk of spilling hazardous wastes or fly ash or such things into our rivers. Secondly, also in terms of the noise that will be generated by the different vessels that ply if the traffic is increased to those levels. And these things are definitely going to affect the ecology of fisheries as well as river dolphins. Dredging also, because rivers have to constantly be dredged to create enough depth so that these ships can ply. And all these factors are definitely going to have some level of fairly serious implications for the conservation of the species. But our aim is to, of course, understand how these threats manifest, whether the dolphin is able to cope with some of them. Because as you can imagine, for after such a long course of evolution, the species has shown some really remarkable resilience, even to all these dams, barrages, pollution, and other threats. Of course, its numbers have gone down, its range has declined, but the species still is very much there. So there is hope, but we also have to constantly work towards understanding the impacts and trying to mitigate them or avoiding such projects.